Welcome back, class 10, your physical education class. Continuing with chapter 7, safety in sports, we were discussing sports related injuries. Today we will start discussing with stress fracture. This injury or this fracture is caused due to overuse. It is common in athletes who have high level of stress, such as repetitive action of running. If the stress is of repetitive loads overpower the ability of the bone to repair itself, small cracks can begin to occur within the bone structure. It occurs due to ill-devised and unscrupulous training program. Unscrupulous means not proper, not scientific. Training program carrying repetitive overstressing of bones due to weight training or forceful muscular contraction. If the weight training or forceful muscular contraction is unscientific, chances are there can be a stress fracture. They may develop when individual subjects bones to repetitive stress and force, for example, when running, walking, or jumping and landing. What are the causes? Causes are many. For example, too much or too fast training, sudden change in the training, overuse of the body part, especially legs, improper equipment, increased physical stress, poorly cushioned shoes can contribute to a stress fracture, as can training on excessively hard surfaces such as concrete. More height and weight causes more force to be absorbed by the legs, improper muscle and bone alignment, weak muscles and bones. So these are the causes. What are the symptoms? Pain is the most common symptom. Pain subsides or goes away with rest. Swelling may occur at the site. It can swell up at the site of the injury. There may be spot tenderness if the area is touched. If the area is touched, it can be tender. That means it is painful to touch. Possible bruising, outside injury, possibly. What is the first aid? Pricer, protection, rest, ice application, compression, elevation, and referral. Now comes fracture. What is fracture? A crack or a break in bone is called fracture. The application of force to a joint or bone may give rise to bone injury either at the point of the impact or some distance away, where the impact is there at that point or at a point which is distance away from that impact point. It is common in the fields of sports. There are various kinds of fractures: simple, compound, multiple, comminuted, green stick, spiral, complicated fracture, impacted fracture, these types of things. Okay, simple fracture. A simple fracture shows no break in the skin or no wound. A bone breaks, but the skin over it does not. Compound fracture. In this type of fracture, the bone and the skin break and there's a danger of infection. Linear fracture, breakage running parallel to the long axis of the bone. Multiple fracture, that means multiple means many fractures, more than one fracture in a bone. Transverse fracture has a horizontal fracture line. Oblique fracture is in oblique or diagonal fracture. Comminuted fracture means this type of fracture occurs when the bone shatters into 3 or more pieces. Green stick fracture means the break occur only part way through the bone. Part way through the bone. Spiral fracture means when a bone is broken by twisting force, when the bone is twisted. Complicated fracture. Complicated fracture is when bone or bones which have been broken causes damage to other organs or structures such as lungs, kidneys, major blood vessels, blood vessels, spleen or liver. Suppose someone breaks a bone of the rib cage, a rib bone, and the rib bone hits the or punctures the lungs. It's a complicated fracture. Immediate medical attention is needed. Now comes another one, is impacted fracture, when broken ends of both the bones are driven into each other. Broken ends are driven into each other. Causes: fracture may occur due to the impact of direct force inherent in a severe blow. Severe force as you hit against somebody, you fall in a game, or you fall from a stair, then might be an accident. These things. A bone may fracture due to a fall, indirect force, the impact of which is transmitted. Fracture may also cause due to accidental twisting of the bone. Symptoms: pain at or near the site of the injury. The movement at the site of the injury looks and feels unnatural. There occurs significant loss of strength. One can hear or feel the sound of the bone. Irregular bone can be felt near the skin. Numbness in the injured area. Bluish color, swelling or visible deformity in the injured area. Bone protruding, coming out through the skin. Heavy bleeding in the injury sites. What is the first aid? First aid is over here a little bit critical. Why? Do not move the injured area. Secondly, immobilize. Immobilize means don't move it at all. Keep it where it is. Don't try to realign the bone, push the bone by sticking it out. Because one doesn't know how it is working. So just keep it the way it is. The doctor is the best judge. Apply a splint to the area above or below the fracture. Splint means a wooden stick or a metal stick just below or above the fracture. Padding the splints can help to reduce the discomfort. Protect the area from further injury. Provide rest and stop using the injured part. Apply ice over the affected area. Compress the area. Apply proper bandaging to avoid movement. Elevate the injured part. And at last, refer the casualty to a competent doctor. Now come plantar fasciitis. Plantar fasciitis is one of the most common cause of heel pain. It is an inflammation of plantar fascia ligament. The plantar fascia is a thick web-like ligament that connects heel to the front of the foot. It supports the arch of the foot and helps to walk. It is common in runners and menopausal women. Women who are pregnant often experience bouts, coming and going, of plantar fasciitis. What are the causes of plantar fasciitis? Improper footwear, having flat feet or very high arch, often wearing high-heeled shoes, having tight Achilles tendons or heel cord, have an unusual walk or foot posture, or overweight. What are the symptoms of plantar fasciitis? Symptoms can range from pain on the bottom of the foot, near the heel, pain with the first few steps after getting out of the bed in the morning or after a long period of rest. When you step down in the morning, there's a pain in the heel. Pain subsides after a few moments of walking. Greater pain after exercise or activity, not during, after. Climbing stairs may be very difficult due to heel stiffness. What is the first aid? You can mix 2 or 3 tablespoons of Epsom salt in a tub filled with warm water until the salt is completely dissolved. Then soak the foot in the water for at least 10 to 15 minutes twice every day. Massage the foot heel with olive or coconut oil to lessen the pain or inflammation. Wear sports shoes, possibly an insole, over sandals or slippers for an extra support. Heel pads or arch supporters should be sought to provide further stability. You should protect the area from further injury. You should provide rest and stop using the injured part. Application of ice is extremely helpful. Compressing the area and applying proper bandage to avoid movement is also helpful. Elevation of that injured part is helpful, and obviously referring the casualty to a competent doctor is also extremely necessary. Now, another type of injury we'll discuss today is sprained ankle. Ankle sprains are common in sports. It's a very common sports injury. It occurs when the ligament that supports the ankle is stretched beyond their limits and tear. Ligament injury in the ankle can be classified into three types depending upon the severity of injury. Number one is grade 1, which is mild ligament injury. The ligament is mildly damaged. It has been slightly stretched but not torn, and is still able to hold and help keep the ankle joint stable. That is mild ligament injury. Grade 2 is moderate ligament injury. The ligament stretches to the point where it becomes loose. This is often referred to as partial tear of the ligament. Number 3 is severe ligament injury. The ligament is completely torn. The ligament has been split into two pieces and the ankle joint is unstable. What are the causes? A fall that has caused the ankle to twist, landing awkwardly on foot after jumping or pivoting, walking or exercising on an uneven surface, another person stepping or landing on foot during sports activity. What are the symptoms? Pain, especially when you bear weight on the affected foot, when you carry weight. Tenderness, that means when you touch, it is painful to touch. When you touch the ankle, swelling, bruising, external injury, reducing range of motion, ROM. You cannot properly move the ankle joint as it could have been moved if there was no injury. Instability in ankle, popping sensation or sound at the time of injury, skin discoloration may occur. And what is the first aid? Is pricer, protection, rest, ice application, compression, elevation, and referral. So, that is, we are today discussing various types of sports injury. Next is tennis elbow. It is an inflammation of the tendons that join the muscle of the forearm to the outside of the elbow. It occurs often due to overusing the forearm muscles and tendon around the elbow joint. It is also known as lateral pain or lateral epicondylitis. Playing tennis or other racket sports can cause this condition. What are the causes? Any repetitive motion of the wrist and arm, activities that require excessive constant gripping or squeezing, poor technique, snapping and turning wrist and arm. What are the symptoms? Tenderness on the outside of the elbow. When the outside of the elbow is touched, it is painful to touch. Morning stiffness of the elbow with persistent aching. Aching goes on. Sore of the forearm. Elbow pain is worse while grasping or holding an abdomen. When you're touching or fisting this, your arm, fisting your hand like this, it is very painful over here, right? Pain occurs while lifting, or when you lift something or you bend the arm, pain occurs. What is the first aid? First aid is again pricer, protection, rest, ice application, compression, elevation, and referral. So if a question is asked, what is the first aid? Just don't write pricer. You explain the step. What is protection? Protect the area from further injury. Then rest is provide rest and stop using the injured part. Apply ice over the affected area. Compress the area by proper bandaging to avoid movement. Elevate the injured part. And last, refer the casualty to a component doctor. So explain the steps. Don't just write pricer. First aid, you write pricer and explain the steps. This is the way you should answer the question if asked. So that is all for today. We'll continue with this chapter in the next class because quite a bit of other types of injuries are left. Thank you.